All right. Well, we want to welcome to the Musty Creative Podcast, all the way from quarantine, Mark Soderblom. Am I saying that
Hey,
correctly?
yep,
Soderblom?
Soderbloom.
Soderblom. Okay, Soderblom.
Exactly.
Mark Soderblom. We want to welcome Mark Soderblom to the Musty Creative Podcast. Mark, thank you so much for being here. We really appreciate you
Oh,
for joining us today on the podcast. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great. I'm excited to be here.
Amazing. Mark, you are a cinematographer and editor. You worked on many different movies and sets. And, we just want to thank you so much. We want to recognize your creativity. We want to recognize your perseverance through that, through the struggles of creativity. And so we want to give you the title, bestow upon you, the Musty Creative title, which you have not earned today, but you earned already as a creative. And so you are a Musty Creative.
I am honored. Thank you.
Awesome. No, thank you. And then I know, full disclosure, Michelle, you want to talk about how you met Mark and
Oh, yeah, sure. I feel like there's always a full disclosure moment in these interviews. But yeah, so Mark and I met at La Sierra University. I think you were just taking random film classes there at the time.
Sounds right.
And we took a class together, and then I saw your work in a class, and I was like, wow, that's amazing. He shouldn't be in this class. He should be out filming something. And then I realized, he's already been doing stuff. So it was really cool meeting you and getting to know your work. And then eventually we got to work together on one of my films, Illusory, which is in post-production right now. So
it was so fun. Such a cool project.
Yeah, it was really cool. And I'm really glad I got to meet you. I got to take your talent and put it in my film, so that was pretty nice. But
it's always a pleasure to work with you, and it's great to work with other creatives.
Yeah. So how did you get into filmmaking? Like, what started you? Did you see a movie, or did you see, I don't know, somebody working in the industry that...
It's kind of like a combo for me.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like I never really had any other career goals. It was always just like, I think I want to work in movies. And I'm pretty sure that stemmed from seeing a behind the scenes feature on some movie somewhere. And I'm like, those people have the coolest jobs ever.
Mm-hmm.
And then I was super fortunate in that one of the families that went to my high school were former commercial producers.
Oh, wow.
I know, right? And one of them even was a visual effects supervisor, and he had worked on The Notebook and Blade Runner. And I'm like, here at my little school, I have this resource.
Yeah.
And they were really kind to help kind of show me the options and the pathways.
Mm-hmm.
So I felt very fortunate to have them.
That's not the normal story, I don't think.
Right.
People usually struggle, and they're like, I don't know anybody, but you were sort of placed in that little sphere of people. So that's really cool.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that's cool. I think when you hear these stories, or when we've asked these questions on the podcast before, everyone seems to have a different pathway of how they've gotten to where they are. So it's actually really cool. And again, I'm always amazed that there's so many people who have lived and who are currently living and who will live in the future. Yeah. But we're all unique in the way of how our lives are and how our pathways lead us to wherever we need to be. So that's actually really amazing.
Oh, yeah. I feel like there's been a lot of leading and all this kind of guidance, and doors have just been opened for me. And I just feel very fortunate because I know a lot of people do have a very hard time finding their way through this. And I am very grateful that I've had the guidance.
Yeah, that's awesome. And then you also said it was kind of like both. So was there a movie that you can refer back to?
Absolutely. So I know some of my earliest little things I used to make were themed off of Star Wars, which I mean, I had to. I feel like a lot of people got inspired by that movie series.
Oh, yeah.
And I remember seeing a lightsaber and being like, wow, I want to make that.
Right.
And then having to go into Microsoft Paint and draw it in Microsoft Paint. And then I was like, well, that's only one frame. So I don't know how to make a video go into frames. So we started doing stop motion animation with ourselves just so I could paint that in.
That's wow. Hey, that's cool. That's really cool.
Oh yeah. So
That must have been a long process too.
oh yeah. All of the videos are maybe 10 seconds.
Yeah. Just like, and then that's it.
Exactly. No sound effects either, because
Yeah.
I didn't grasp that idea.
Mhm. That's funny. And then you're saying, because we were talking about like just you having doors open for you. Another thing that you had told us before is that you actually got to work on the Netflix film Bright.
Mhm.
So what was that like? How did you get that position, and
Yeah.
what did you do there?
Well, the whole process of how that worked out is pretty crazy. I had been going to school up in Northern California at Pacific Union College,
Mm.
and I basically got to the point where I was like, I don't want to take on student loan debt, so I'm just going to take a year off, see what happens, and then go back. And
Nice.
during that year that I was off, a assistant director went to PUC and said, "Hey, I have an internship for you guys, for one of your students, to come work on an independent feature with me." But the problem is all of them were still in school, and I happened to be down here in Southern California.
Nice.
So they sent his info on to me, and next thing I know, I'm a set production assistant on this little independent movie called The Clapper, which you can check out on Netflix.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And the crew was incredible, and everyone was really nice and supportive of me. And they started passing my name along to other shows.
Wow.
So from The Clapper, I got to jump to Brooklyn Nine-Nine for a couple episodes, and then to Ray Donovan for an episode, and then suddenly I'm on day one of Bright for Netflix. And I'm like, I have no idea what I'm doing here, but I'm just gonna soak up the experience.
Yeah. So that's really cool. Brooklyn Nine-Nine is an hilarious show. I feel like not enough people talk about it.
Mhm.
I know that Big Bang Theory, just finished, but I feel like a lot of people focus on that show. Whereas Brooklyn Nine-Nine with this diversity,
Oh
also it's
yeah.
set in a police department. It just does so many things really, really well. So
Oh
that's
yeah.
that's pretty cool. Um,
Exactly. Their set is epic to to like walk on.
oh
You're
yeah,
like you step through the flats and you're like this place, everything, like 360, legit.
yeah,
Like and like dust on the tables and like sticky notes that look like they've seen some like scribbles. It's yeah,
that's
That's
cool.
cool.
so cool.
And then you're able to get the opportunity because you decided to take a year off to not accumulate more debt.
Hmm.
That's actually something that I kind of want to talk to you about because you seem to make yourself available and flexible within your career so far, and your motivation in that moment was not to accumulate more debt. Like, can you
Hmm.
talk to the idea of like film students wanting to get that experience, but also obviously degrees and finances, things
Oh
can get
yeah,
really expensive, and you may not make six figures in your career for a while.
it's
So
very true.
yeah, can you talk to that, like your
Yeah.
mindset about that?
So the way I've always, or the way I've kind of looked at it, I mean, my mentors who were producers, they're like, yeah, you should get a degree, not
Mhm.
necessarily in production, but you should have one just in case. So I see the value in having education for sure.
Yeah.
But when it came to working in the production industry, um, I basically was like, I don't think paying for classes will get me will teach me as much as day one of being a PA.
Yeah.
It was insane because in
Yeah.
that first day, it was like suddenly you see the politics of it. You see how a
Mm.
set is run, how the unions are all working together, the lines you have to be careful like of what all's going down. So you
Yeah.
learn a whole lot about how a production is run very, very quickly just from being there, which is something I didn't actually get going to. I went to a pretty small school up in Northern California
Oh
where
wow.
no one would really have had that Hollywood on set
Mhm.
experience. Because even though The Clapper was very tiny, it was like $5 or $6 million budget, which
Yeah.
sounds crazy high, but is not very high at all compared to like Bright, which is 90 million, which is I guess like a low high tier movie.
Wow.
Mhm.
That's
It's
so
like,
that's so strange to say that. That
yep.
90 million sounds like a lot.
Because that was like highlight of that experience was on The Clapper. The hair and makeup team, I got to know them really well. And then on Bright, which was several months down the line, I happened to be walking through the middle of the set one day and I see the lead hairstylist from The Clapper who's there doing hair and makeup, and it was just like this wonderful little reunion.
Mm-hmm.
And then I was like, "This movie's so big," and she's like, "Nah, no, it's not." So
Who was she working on? Joel Egerton or?
she was. I think she was there doing like the background because they had so many background people on that show. But yeah, financial side is it's tough to weigh out
Yeah,
the cost of benefits of school, because I know for people that have no one around them to kind of help them navigate it, it could be a really great thing. And the people
right.
you meet, like all the connections, like getting to work on your project, Michelle. Like if I hadn't gone to La Sierra for those few classes, we never would have met and
Yeah.
missed out opportunity.
Mm-hmm.
So you meet a lot of cool people there, but then there's also no need to get the education to start as a production assistant. It was more of I'd never really seen like a production department and then or like a solid production department, solid camera, like where everyone is union and there's divisions of labor
Mm,
and lines that can't be crossed because jobs are assigned to different union positions,
yeah,
and then dealing with like production managers and budgets and seeing that go down, and plus dealing with like with talent and when they're actually celebrity talent, how
yeah.
there's like this weird error of how you're supposed to treat people. It
Right,
was wild.
right.
But mhm.
But that professional experience that's amazing. And
Oh
yeah,
yeah,
going from the Clapper to Brooklyn Nine-Nine to Bright, so that's like great experience. You can't buy that in the classroom.
exactly.
Yeah, that's
And
awesome.
I have no idea how I would have gotten there without that lucky break to do the internship.
Yeah,
I have no idea.
yeah.
So
But again, it's just really to highlight the fact that you put yourself in a flexible position to
mhm,
be available. I mean
exactly.
that's great. You followed your, I guess, your heart, or
Oh yeah.
yeah.
Hmm.
Cool. And then also your role on those sets. It says miscellaneous crew on your IMDb page. Can you like walk us
Hmm.
through what like that means? And
Yeah. So on all of the Hollywood tier work I've done is as a production assistant,
okay.
and more specifically as an assist or an additional production assistant. So during the Clapper, I was an intern technically, so I was
Yeah.
unpaid. But the
Mm-hmm.
crew at the end kind of pulled together this gift for me, and they ended up basically paying me what I would have been paid as a production assistant just as a gift,
That's
which was
awesome.
it was
Wow.
amazing.
Yeah.
And from there, I started doing the additional PA work, which is where it's like, we are going to be out on location today, and we need 90 PAs
Yeah.
to to make sure things aren't going to go wrong.
Yeah.
So stuff like that. On Bright, I think I worked on day one as like a more standard PA.
Hmm.
And there were like four of us working that day. So we were like running around getting everyone paperwork and like new hire documents. So there's a lot of that too as a
Yeah.
production assistant. So it's not as much coffee runs that
Yeah.
people talk about. I think that's more of the indie set level.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But once you get up to the next one there, it's like you're doing paperwork runs, you're doing radio batteries,
Mm-hmm.
lots of just kind of logistics. You're yelling stuff on behalf, whatever you hear through the radios, you're yelling
Right.
out for everyone else to do.
Yeah.
So it's
Mm-hmm.
more of just being like a human intercom that's there to there to
Yeah.
help and carry things.
And from a cinematography standpoint, with those movies, like complete or those movies slash TV shows, was there anything you picked up from like the cinematography standpoint and like, oh, David Ayer does this, and I like to put this in my tool set.
Oh yeah, I thought it was really like being on set at that scale was so cool because you get to see how they are actually accomplishing lighting and where they're
Hmm.
placing cameras, which is something it's really hard to pick up on when you're just watching the movie.
Yeah.
So I
Mm-hmm.
just remember sitting during Bright. There's that sequence where they find the magic wand at that like rundown place, and they have a whole shootout there. I
Yeah.
remember standing at the top of the stairs that you can see there. I was positioned about halfway up. It's freezing cold.
Yeah.
And just looking down on it. And the whole thing is lit with like 2 sky panels into a bounce and then a couple of LED tubes on
Wow.
top of the building. And I was like, that's it?
Yeah.
They can't be.
Surely there must be more light.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So it was like, oh, it can be way more simple
Yeah.
then I feel it has to be.
Oh wow.
Mhm.
That's a great
That's
lesson.
really interesting. And
And
so, like,
yeah.
you specifically got into DP work. Why did you gravitate towards that out of all the other things you could have been doing on set?
I feel like what happened for me was it all stems back to those like little stop motion Star Wars videos and stuff
Yeah.
like that. I was like, why does this not look like a Hollywood movie? And it's ever since then it's been this pursuit of what do I have to do. So it was like first thing I was like, oh, color grading. If I learn that, that'll get me to be a movie level production. Tries
Yeah.
color grading a bad clip, and I'm like, didn't work there. So then it was what I have to do. So I started learning cameras and lenses and lighting. So it was just like this step by step, and then suddenly now I know all of this stuff and I'm useful to people. So,
It's kind of interesting you said that because, like, I noticed for me, I think it's sort of the same thing. It's like you're learning things, but it's just to receive a certain result. It's not like, oh, I want to learn how to do this. It's like, no, I needed to get to this point. Like, how do I do that? So you're just challenging
exactly.
yourself and like trying to learn different things.
And I think it's a really cool way to go about it, because I had another person tell me that it's always like the best education is when you follow your own curiosity. So it's like it's so cool when there's this field that you don't know anything about, but you still want to know so much about it. So learning it is easy, and it keeps you entertained, and then you're really proud of what you come out with in the end.
Yeah.
And how does cinematography help with storytelling?
So I think cinematography it's pretty important in movies. I'm not going to say it. Sound is way up there. So love to all you sound people out there. But I personally think that images can be extremely powerful. And especially when you start having the option to add motion, I feel like the cinematography in movies is one of the key emotional cues and storytelling tools, because you're basically telling people what to look at, and the way you're lighting it and using color and motion is you're telling people how to feel about it. So what they should see and how that should make them feel is your responsibility to pull off. And it's a lot of responsibility in movies. So it's always it takes a lot of effort to pull it off well.
Yeah, that's a good point. And so I'm wondering, there's obviously, I would think, psychology that plays into it. Do you find yourself learning a little bit about psychology, every once in a while to try to help add to your, the visual presentation?
Well, I took general psychology at PUC.
There you go. Hey, that makes you a psychologist, man.
Oh yeah. I think it's been a lot of studying through through studying cinematography, you do learn a lot about psychology. And usually it's in ways of like how you make people uncomfortable, like pushing in low angles, like stuff like that, giving people no escape by doing one takes.
Yeah.
But I think you do also, I found like it's an inherent feeling that I get from motion and lighting and color, which is pretty helpful.
Yeah.
And then, of course, watching other movies and then reacting to how something makes you feel, and then looking back at why is another great way to kind of dig into the psychology
Definitely.
of it.
What's like a recent movie where you look back and you looked at like a scene and you're like, oh, okay, this is how it made me feel, or is there like in past 6 months or something?
Let me see, because I've been watching this last week. I watched whatever the last episode of Star Wars is. I noticed on Disney Plus they had like a 2-hour behind the scenes thing on
Rise of
just that one.
Skywalker.
So I was like, yes, I'm gonna watch this. And so getting to watch the actual making of process and seeing the decisions that were being made and why, and seeing shots and behind the scenes side by side in some moments, and being like, yeah, that's exactly what I would expect and want in different shots.
Okay.
So I know I often find myself watching a movie and I'm like to myself, I'm like, and push in now, do it now. And then then the camera starts moving and I'm like, yes, good.
Nice.
We're on the right track.
Nice.
And And it's just stuff like that where it's almost become like this inherent sense of how I would like. I'm like, I want that. I see this emotion is where we're going. So camera, help me. Let's go.
Yeah.
Let's bring on the tears.
Right.
And then when you're working with directors, and you could maybe, I don't know, talk about me a little bit if I did something wrong, or like, like
Here we go.
how do you work with a director to pull off their story?
Mm.
So for me, it's been different with every director, kind of what they're looking for. I typically will read over the script several times and try and get an idea myself of what I'm looking to see or feel in the story. And then I really like working with directors that have also kind of thought through some visual elements too, because I feel like I really like to collaborate with people on visuals. So I'm open to any crew member who sees something that might be cool. Like, I'm all in. Let's do it.
Nice.
But working with the directors, I think it's a lot of on-set time. Kind of once you've, of course, worked with them to establish like a look for how it should be in terms of like color and how much contrast you should have. Like, how dark is this? Is it high key, low key? Is there a specific color palette you're trying to stick in? Type stuff. Then you can look at scenes as a whole and try and figure out like an emotional arc for those scenes, and then choose how the camera will move, or the lenses, if they're going to be tight, if they're going to be wide. And you can kind of continue on down and guide them through. Once you know what they're looking for, you can offer your input as like, oh, you want this to be a little scarier. Why don't we put a really wide angle lens on it and drop it down to the floor and just have this creeping move or something like that. So the whole scene, we're like a snake, like moving into the scene. Or yeah, just kind of stuff like that. Where you can work with them. Once you know what they're wanting to say with a scene, you can translate it a little bit into camera moves and pitch those ideas and see what sticks.
Do you notice a difference in, because you're saying like for specific genres, there's like different styles you can use like with your camera. Do you notice like a big difference between genre styles, or is it just like little things here and there that are different?
There's, I think some genres, like if you're doing like a rom-com, you're probably going to play it safe in like 35 millimeters and tighter, just so you're not doing any crazy perspective. I think there's kind of like each genre has its own language that's kind of been established. But that brings up movies like Midsummer, where they took the language of like a beautiful rom-com and twisted it all horror-esque. I haven't seen the trailers because I was like, ooh, that looks pretty.
Yeah.
Regrets. But I think each genre has a language, and you kind of can steer your camera direction into those genres. Or you can, of course, flip it on its head and try something new.
Yeah, I was just thinking maybe it'd be possible to get a romantic comedy, but 1917 cinematography. That would play well. No.
I can see it.
Yeah.
There's got to be a way.
Yeah.
Just one shot through the whole thing.
Yes.
And then I remember just the little bit of time that I spent with both you and Michelle on Illusory. You did a lot of prep work with her, setting up shots, going through locations, doing walkthroughs before you even started the production. As part of your prep work for a movie, is that kind of like your established, agenda or work ethic for that? Did you learn it from somebody, or is this something you picked up on your own?
It's kind of been something that I've picked up from, I guess, the experience of shooting projects. Unfortunately, most of the projects I've done have had very, very short prep time. Or if not, I'm semi-producing it. So in terms of getting to do creative choices, you don't get as many. So it's all just like, what can we afford to do?
Yeah.
And how will we pull it off?
Yeah.
And then you get there on the day and you're like, I got to shoot this now.
Right.
But when there's time and you can go and see locations beforehand and like block it out with the director and think of your lighting schemes, and you can do all of this prep work, then on the day, it's like you can have these magic moments where you're no longer panicked about getting what you need, and you can start getting extras, and you can start changing things.
Yeah.
So those are opportunities I wish I had more of or I wish I could do that more. It's get that extra prep time in so that when it comes down to the day on the set, you're not panicked about getting enough. It's about getting the best.
Right. Right. So it's really important to get that prep time.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Exactly.
Wow.
Prep is free is what I was told once. Like all the prep time is free time. As soon as everyone's there and your crew's there, money is flowing.
Right. That's true. Especially from the snack bar, right? No.
Exactly.
It's the train that you can't stop.
Yeah.
It's terrifying, right? Like once it gets going, you're like, oh no.
Yeah.
We're on an actual schedule now.
Yeah, I remember Michelle and I were slowly watching Community, and there's an episode where the dean wants to shoot a film, and he just blows up the schedule and goes way out budget. And I think right from that episode there was no prep time from the dean. Yeah.
Nope. I watched that one this week too.
Yeah. And just because, like, again, like 10 years ago before I met Michelle, I would be like, oh, it's fine, just go and shoot. In fact, there's a bad lighting story that one of my first interactions with Michelle and her brother, I wanted them like, oh, let's go shoot like at nighttime. Let's just shoot the torch light in the street. And I thought there'd be no problem. And they're like, no, you need lighting. And they proved me wrong. I mean, they proved me wrong. And but it's just amazing. Like to make fantastic work, I think you see preparation by artists in any genre or any entertainment industry is like the key thing.
So true. So true.
Okay, so I know you like to geek out about like camera equipment and stuff like that.
Love it.
So what are your top 3 cameras and why?
So right now, dream camera, the Alexa. Always good, always reliable. But I did use the Red Monster lately and was pretty blown away. And then, I mean, the other cameras, I think, is that random? Don't mind the echo speaking. And it's like, the Alexa, the Reds, and then Canon, like the cinema series from Canon, rock solid.
Yeah,
and so light.
So okay, price wise, the Alexa would be the highest price, or would Red be a little?
The Alexa's still way up there. They're like, I think 65,000. It's
just for the body. Oh wow.
Yeah. Right.
Dang.
Depression.
It's like, do I buy a house or a camera?
Definitely camera. Definitely. I think like the Red Monster is like 54,000. So it's close.
Goals.
I know.
That's a lot of money.
Like production is so expensive.
Yeah. Oh, well, okay. Quick minor detour. We're using Unity 3D for some virtual production stuff.
Oh, nice.
What is your opinion on that? On if you have any virtual production experience?
I don't have any personal experience with it, but I am very interested in it.
Yeah.
I'm like the possibilities and the opportunity to jump in on something this early. And I'm like, I think it's definitely the future of a lot of visual effects and location work for like mid to high budget stuff. Like, and then that budget's just going to keep dropping. So suddenly anyone who wants to shoot a car chase can just make a virtual scene and shoot it live. Like I think it's so cool, the possibilities that it's opening up.
Yeah, definitely. We went to see a panel about the Lion King virtual production work, and then I think Michelle, you talked to a cinematographer at the end of the panel, but like he was his first virtual production set.
Oh, he was a I think he was a camera assistant, but he was like really old fashioned and they were trying to like teach him how to do this new stuff and he's like, that's not how I used to do it. And he was like trying to like figure stuff out. But
Same.
But
yeah,
yeah,
it's just really cool to see like how the old world was like blending into the new world of technology and all that stuff.
yeah.
Oh yeah. Did they
And you
do
guys,
LED wall stuff, or were they?
I don't think so. I think it was just they had the cameras, they were in Unity at the same, or was it Unreal they were using or Unity? I can't
for
remember.
that production, they said Unity.
Unity.
Hmm.
But yeah, I don't think they had like, yeah, I'm not sure. I think they were just moving the cameras within the virtual world, but they didn't
Yeah, that
have
makes sense.
anything like out in the studio or anything like that.
It's wild.
Yeah,
Like
it's
I
kind
want
of
in.
Yeah.
it's weird. It's like more imagination because you see the BTS videos and there's nothing there.
Hmm. Like I can't even imagine like just operating. I don't know if you just like operate a camera and you'd have your eyepiece and you see it. Because I'm used to like open the other eye, check and see what, and then close your eye.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I think
Like,
it's all in the Finder. I don't think
so
there's.
cool.
yeah, and then like you just copy and paste like, oh, I need another camera. It's like, oh
And you make more. It's
yeah.
That's so
way
great.
cheaper than an Alexa.
But for you, like, are you building a personal collection of cameras um, as you're able to afford them?
Not as much. I mean, I picked up just like a stills camera, an A7R,
Hmm.
that can work. It crosses over well between the photo video world.
Hmm.
And then otherwise, I've just been fortunate that my jobs have supplied cameras and they've all been nice.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
So I haven't had to rent anything high end yet. It just happens to be supplied.
nice. That's awesome.
And then, like, for the differences in cameras and accessories, um, how do the accessories help in creating an overall feel for the film?
So there's so many cool ways you can like modify an image in camera. So you of
Mm-hmm.
course have your lenses. So all these different lens manufacturers out there make all these different like lens lineups and they all kind of feel a little different. I mean, they look very, very similar usually. It's very
Mm-hmm.
hard to, if you didn't see them like back to back to back to back, it might be harder to identify them. But they do all have these very unique characteristics that I'm still learning, trying to figure out how to be a better camera literate or a lens literate individual.
Mm-hmm.
Then, of course, there's glass filters, which are really cool. They're a little more high risk because you put them in front of your lens and you shoot with them, and what the image they make is baked in forever to your final footage. So,
Mm-hmm.
like the music videos I just did, we used these Pro Mist filters, which
Mm-hmm.
bloom out all the highlights, so they make them glow like there's haze in the room, even though there's not any haze at all.
Mm-hmm.
And it's so cool because you just kind of the scene looks kind of dull, so you're just like, I'll just pop this filter in here, and suddenly, boom, everything's glowing, kind of magical.
Nice. And then I wanted
Yeah,
to. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
no, go ahead. I was like, I don't know
Oh,
what other accessories there are.
yeah. Well, I actually one last accessory I did notice one time again on Illusory. You and Michelle were figuring out what time of day to shoot, and you brought up an app to figure out. Oh, okay, we should shoot around this time. I was like, wow, this guy really knows what he's doing.
Oh, oh, thank you.
Yeah.
Well, I guess there are a couple apps that I use.
Hmm.
One is called Lumos, which
Okay.
is free, and it lets you kind of track the track of the sun throughout the day. So you
Nice.
can, if you're in the location, you can open it up and you can look around in this augmented reality and see the path of the sun.
Nice.
And that's really helpful for scheduling because then you're like, oh yeah, we want to shoot this way toward the sun at the beginning of the day, and then we'll flip around and we'll shoot the other way as the sun's going down, just so you're not dealing with harsh shadows on people's faces.
Mm-hmm.
And the other app I use is called Cadridge, and
Hmm.
it's a director's viewfinder, and you can use it to simulate different lenses on different cameras,
Oh,
and you can figure out your framing, and it's
wow.
really useful. I pull that one out all the time because I don't want to ask my camera assistants to run to the
Yeah.
lens case to swap out for a different lens
Yeah.
if I may not need them to, or ask them to move the camera somewhere so I can just pull it up on my phone, be like, flip it into like a 35 millimeter, move over somewhere, try it out. And if it's good, then I ask him to move stuff.
Yeah, that's cool.
But I saw that one on the clapper, and I was like, "That is a brilliant move, sir."
Like I will take this tool and store it for you.
Exactly.
And then I had a quick question about your business, 47 Motion Pictures. You co-founded that. Can you talk about the name and your co-founder and what work you're doing? And
so 47 was founded by myself and Philip Sherwood.
nice.
The two of us met at Loma Linda University Church Media,
Oh,
and we basically there had the opportunity to start making narrative shorts. And the most ambitious thing we did was, for a summer series, we produced a little mini series called Ever Ready, which was this 5-episode series of like 7 minutes per episode. And we just kind of dove in headfirst. Excited for the opportunity. I had just come back from working on the clapper, so I was like, I have the Hollywoods. We can apply the Hollywoods to our shoot.
Yeah. Also, like, just quick note of praise. Great show. I hope we can get more of those.
I'm hoping so too.
Yeah.
Like as soon as this whole quarantine is over,
Yeah.
I was like, I think we're on track for this summer, but nope. So,
2020, right?
maybe next year. Maybe next year.
Yeah. Yeah.
But what happened with that show is the script was 47 pages long, and it was the longest thing we had attempted to kind of produce, at least on our own. So the number 47 kind of was just like this, a first step idea, and like you can achieve this if you really go for it. So it's just the symbol of progress and continuing to improve. So what we founded 47 after getting the option to bid a Hyundai commercial, and we were like, man, we better get legit fast.
Yeah.
Didn't get the bid, sadly, but we were like, well, we have this production company now. We may as well put it to use.
Right.
So we picked up just little video jobs here and there with it, but we didn't take it too far in the end. Just because we're like, our full-time job took us back in.
Yeah.
So it's one of those back burner things where it's like when the big opportunities come along, we've got it there, ready to go.
Very cool. Very cool.
Because you were saying Star Wars was an inspiration for you, but are there specific cinematographers that you look to for inspiration?
I'd say I look a lot at, I guess, images, and I didn't ever start tying them to cinematographers for quite a while. I would just see like, oh, that movie looks really nice. I'd love to emulate the style. So then I started looking at the DPs, and it's like every movie I see, I'm like, oh man, that's so inspiring. And then I look up a DP, and it's a different person.
Yeah.
So it's this whole huge list of like one-offs from all of these DPs. But I would be, I guess, I have to say Roger Deakins, because if I didn't say him, then I would be a bad DP. So, he has some really incredible, I just like the naturalism of how all of the shots look and how soft the lighting is and how believable everything about it is. And then there's like Rachel Morrison. She did some stuff that was incredibly dark cinematography, or like Mudbound, where you like can't see anything at the beginning, and like that's incredibly bold. So go for it, Rachel. Oh, and then there's like Steve Yedlin. He does techie stuff, so you can follow him for like, you can see him doing camera testing and showing lensing, and he's really cool that way. Shane Hurlbut shares all this information on his Hurlbut Academy. So I think it's really cool. All of these people that teach, I think, are the ones that really are useful and really helpful, because they're actually showing you how they achieve it, and you get to see their work at the same time.
Nice.
But I'm always drawn to like the very, like the hypernatural looking imagery for the most part. And you see that a lot from Roger Deakins. And there was the other guy, I looked him up. I have to find him again because he's really good.
Yeah.
He shot Solo.
Oh,
Bradford Young.
Yeah.
I think
That was a good looking movie.
And he did Now I don't know the movie name. It's the space one where like the things land, and it has Amy Adams.
Oh,
It's a
you like
puzzle.
yeah.
That
Michelle
was
really
shot
like
by
Oh.
Bradford Young.
What is
it has like a time
Arrival?
limit to it.
Arrival. Yep,
Yeah,
There
right.
we go.
exactly.
Yeah.
Oh, I see my lighting has shifted to a heavy noir.
Yeah.
So-
Yes.
Is it telling of something else?
You're
No.
welcome. So-
Yeah, right. Yeah, I think I don't know the names either. I just like the movies, but I think J.J. Abrams, cinematographer, or
Ooh,
I think the work in his films, I think everything looks really, really good.
yeah.
I know people are not a fan of the lens flares in the Star Trek films. But I like them.
I like them.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And, like Super 8 and yeah, Force Awakens,
Mhm.
Rise of Skywalker, just really, really beautiful films. I
I
just
think
don't
it's
know.
Dan Mindel, maybe,
Was
is
it
the DP.
because yeah, I think he works with the same person. Yeah.
Exactly. I love the style. Like, I think it's that style that Star Wars, like, you can see its impact on J.J. Abrams, where there's just
Mhm.
like this magical element
Yeah.
that you see from Spielberg. And I
Right.
think that, like, that kind of magic experience is what really got me into it.
Yeah.
So it's really cool to see it come back when the new Star Wars happened, and you're like, this could be Spielberg.
Yeah. Exactly. Well, in Spielberg, in Ready Player One, I think he definitely innovated. I know that he had some kind of help with pushing him in because they did a little bit of virtual production work from what I heard. But Ready Player One, that like to shoot that, like I don't know, just amazing because you had fully CGI characters that then also had to
Whew.
shoot, go back to the live action as well.
Like, I can't even imagine.
Yeah, but then yeah, I think Back to the Future, and ET.
Yep,
That's why I love Super 8 so much because it just really felt like that. It felt like home
exactly.
in a way, which is I don't know if that's weird to say, but
No, I think that makes a lot of sense.
yeah,
Especially with ET.
yeah, that's right. Okay,
Yes.
I wasn't trying to pun there, but yeah, Michelle caught me.
Yeah.
Well done.
So I know you've already told a lot of stories already, but is there a specific story that you're dying to tell?
Oh, like in what sense?
Just in filmmaking, or I don't know if there another way you would want to
Oh,
tell a
I was
story?
like, is this like a story that like a narrative that I have that I would make into a movie, or like a story from being around movies?
Oh,
Oh,
That's
a
yeah,
more
narrative, right?
narrative, or I mean, if there's a visual way too that you're like, I would like to tell a story from
ooh,
this perspective visually.
Mhm.
exactly. Well, I mean, it's kind of cheesy, but my dream is to make a mock doc style mini series on theater kids, just because I feel like they're a great target. And as a former
When you
as a
say
former
target,
theater kid, I'm
it's
like,
bad.
the culture is so funny that
Nice.
I would love to do it.
Did you watch the High School Musical, the musical, the series on Disney Plus yet?
I haven't.
Okay.
It's been semi done, hasn't it?
Yeah, yeah. It finished.
Yes.
It finished January, I think.
I'm
Of
gonna
this
watch that.
year. Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah.
Get some
Let me know what you think.
inspiration. Because I'm like, that's the experiences when I started in community theater for a
Oh,
very brief time. And I'm
Mhm.
like, oh man, the whole thing is just incredible for
yeah,
what you could do, the characters you could create, because you run into the same people in every theater.
Mhm.
So very relatable and hopefully funny. But I'm not a writer, so if anyone wants to write it, I'll shoot it.
nice. When you mean like the different types, like there's like I guess just from my experience watching High School Musical, the musical series, like there's the try hard,
Yep,
and there's the guy who doesn't want to be there, but he's supremely talented. The shy girl. I don't know.
exactly.
I don't know. Yeah.
You pretty much run into all of them. I love there was like always this thing of like, well, we're all gonna make it to Broadway someday vibe, and I'm like, it's like none of us are going anywhere. Who are we kidding? So
Yeah. Oh, that's funny.
It's like
Yeah.
overly optimistic.
exactly. There's this. I think it could be endearing.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And then all of the backstage things that happen that exact you'd expect everything you'd expect to happen backstage, lines being forgotten, the relationships that form between people in shows. It's just, I think it's really funny now looking back.
Yeah. Were you a fan of Glee?
I actually didn't ever watch it. I feel like I would have been.
Yeah. Yeah. Mark, we just want to thank you for being here with us and again sharing your knowledge. And we had a wonderful time. And you are more than welcome to come back, especially when Illusory is more finished. We'd love to get your perspective on things some more. And if you want to follow Mark, would you want us to follow your Instagram or your Twitter?
Sure, yeah. My Instagram is just Mark Soderblom. You can see random photos. And
but they look good though. Your Instagram looks awesome.
Well, thank you very much.
Yeah, you're very welcome. Yeah. Yeah, so follow Mark, and thank you, Mark, for being on the show. Have a great day, and we'll talk to you later.
Thanks for having me.